And we're back talking with Doyle with State Representative Doyle Heffley. As always, we're joined by the indomitable Hunter Kipe and the disembodied voice of producer Chuck on the ones and twos. Representative Heffley, what are we talking about today?
Housing, lack thereof, and it's really becoming an issue. As we've seen since COVID, there really has been a shortage in housing. And there's a lot of contributing factors to that. But really what it's leading to is it's harder and harder for young families to go out and either purchase or build their first home or find their first apartment and start their life on their own and raising their family. And it's a big issue. It's a concern.
And I think the biggest thing that we should talk about, too, is you're not talking about low-income housing either. Now, what is it coined now? Attainable housing?
Yes, attainable housing. Now, this isn't like the low-income housing of the late 70s and 80s where you were building, government housing. What we're really looking at is just a couple of contributing factors. One of them is these endless permitting requirements. It almost makes it impossible for developers to develop new land or new properties. Then also the Uniform Construction Code, while it's very important that we're building safe houses, driving up the costs with some of these endless inspections and some of these out-of-control inspectors. So if you take an old building and you want to refurbish it with the ADA requirements and the cost of building materials right now, it just isn't feasible. So that contributes to more blight. You have blighted properties because investors aren't going to purchase that property if you can't refurbish it and then rent it out and make a profit. And property taxes also plays into that. We see that issue in parts of Carbon County where the taxes are so high on properties that investors or developers aren't going to purchase that. And we're not talking slumlords. We're talking about people that want to come in, take a blighted piece of property, refurbish it, get it back up to where it's a livable house for young families or an apartment. And the building construction costs and the permitting processes have become so cumbersome. On top of that, the ever-changing and adapting UCC codes. Well, we all want smoke detectors in every room, right? We all want to make sure that we have fire safety and things are built properly. But I think we can do that in a way that isn't going to make it prohibit people to develop either developable property or to refurbish blighted properties.
Or even just to buy a home. I mean, since COVID, more and more people, more families are coming to Carbon County, for instance, to live, to have their forever home. How is this affecting Carbon County?
Oh, Carbon County, we definitely have a shortage in attainable housing. And it's very difficult. And it's frustrating because, I have children that are looking for their first home. And it was really, really difficult and really costly. And then add on top of that just the out-of-control policies in Washington, D.C. and inflation. So you're looking at the rising interest rates, the cost of interest rates, so the cost to borrow money is going up. Then on top of that, the energy costs, due to terrible policies coming out of Washington, D.C., are driving up energy costs. And that's if you say I'm going to buy a home or I'm going to rent a house, and maybe maybe your mortgage is going to be $2,500 or maybe $3,000 a month. They say, maybe a young family, maybe you can swing that, and you weigh that out. But now you look at energy costs, which have doubled. I mean, you're looking at a $300 electric bill that maybe now is $600 or $700. Then you look at property taxes. In some cases, could range anywhere from $500 a month to over $1,000 a month just in property taxes in certain areas. I mean, it really makes it unattainable for young families. We have a worker shortage. Well, if you don't live in that community, you're not going to work in that community. So it definitely has caused a lot of issues, and a lot of these problems are actually created by bad policies, right? I mean, contractors and builders know how to build homes, right? Developers know how to take a blighted piece of property and turn it into housing. It's not that we have a lack of knowledge on how to do that, but just bad policy, through tax policy, through over-regulating the building industry, to these endless UCC code adaptions. And then on top of that, there was talk of a federal program to give every new homeowner $25,000. Well, if we haven't learned anything from the so-called Inflation Reduction Act, as the more money you throw out there, you're just going to increase the price of a home by $25,000. If everybody's starting with $25,000, it's just going to drive the cost up, and you continue to have bidding wars. But on top of that, the other, the left wants to talk about rent control. And they're going to say to landlords or developers, oh, you can only charge so much rent. We already have an issue where developers are looking at property and say it's not feasible for them to develop it. They can't lose money when they're developing property. And we don't want them to lose money. We want them to develop property so we have attainable housing for young families and for senior citizens. We have young families right now are weighing out, do they want to have more children? Can they afford more children? And as the greatest nation in the world, we should not have young families contemplating whether they want to start a family or have additional children because they can't afford them. We have the wherewithal and the know-how to build affordable housing. We have a package of bills that we've introduced here in the State House to do that, to reducing regulatory barriers, to adjusting the uniform construction codes, helping communities that want to refurbish and rehabilitate homes that are blighted. All these could be done, creating redevelopment authorities and working with them to do that and getting government essentially out of the way.
Do those bills have support on both sides?
Unfortunately, those bills have been introduced now for the last year in the current State House, and they have not gotten any consideration. But we're hopeful that moving forward, we're going to be able to do something, and I'm going to continue to push for it. Mm-hmm. Property taxes are too high. That puts a burden on the housing industry. Regulations are too much. That puts a burden on whether young families and even seniors can afford housing. A lot of seniors want to downsize. There's nowhere for them to go to downsize to. So this is a across-the-board issue, and it needs to be dealt with.